Hello and welcome aboard the Knitty Stew podcast. My name is Leanne. I am the Knitty Stew, or as Brittany from Crux Fibers has coined, I am also Stewie. I've never actually had a nickname, and at the Fiber Frolic, Brittany said, I feel like I want to call you Stewie. And I was like, I'm down with that. So I hope it catches on. Stew is short for stewardess. I'm a Canadian flight attendant and a knitter, and this is my YouTube channel where I talk about my knitting and bring you on the road with me, my fellow fiber friends. Got a fuzzy going on here. So thanks for being here, and thanks for your precious comments and for the wonderful encouragement that this channel continues to blow my mind with every single time I spend the time doing an episode, and the connections have been incredible, which was proof when I went up to the Fiber Frolic a few weeks ago and got to meet some of you face to face. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Today I am filming, which makes me old. It's not called filming. I am recording here in Abbotsford, BC. This is the traditional territory of the Stolo people. It's the original inhabitants of the Fraser Valley. Stolo means river. There are 24 unique bands that make up the Stolo people here, and I'm proud and grateful to be here today. And hopefully everyone else is doing good. I have a Bengal spice tea. I just had a weird sort of I kind of sometimes get these visual migraines, and I'm not sure if it was the snow reflecting or what was going on, but I had a little bit of I think I'm okay now, and hopefully my podcast makes sense today. So I'm just gonna cozy down, chat about some knitting stuff, and hopefully you'll join me today. As we think about heading into the holiday season, I tend to get a little bit overwhelmed and think about what's to come. So I thought today is a good day, while I have this time here in Abbotsford, to just stay cool, stay calm, and live in the day, and not to think too far ahead. And what I do is I live one pairing at a time. That's what we call the trips that we go on in my flight attendant life. Is I'm on a 5-day pairing right now. I'm in the middle of it. I go home in 2 more days, and then after that, I will focus on the next one and the next one. And I'm always very appreciative when it's winter season and I see people excited to go home and connecting with families. However, it can also be a very stressful time for so many. And I'm really realizing as I get older how much I appreciate knitting and what it does and how it grounds me and gives that moment of peace, and just be like, I'm not going to put weird expectations on myself or too much gift knitting and all the things, and I'm going to focus on the spirit of the season. And I heard recently Fiber Trek, one of amazing podcast, and she talks about having a tradition where she calls it the turn of the year, and I like that, right? The year is winding down, and that really resonates with me. So yeah. And today's episode, I will try and keep as condensed as I possibly can. I do have quite a bit to talk about. I have 3 finished objects to discuss. I have 2 fails, which, you know, if I look at things from the perspective of my favorite spiritual teacher, Wayne Dyer, there are no such thing as fails or failures. It is all just helpful information. So I have a couple of those to share with you, because life isn't all rainbows and butterflies, now is it? I have 1 work in progress, 2 imminent cast-ons that will be happening ASAP. I wanted to, of course, take you on a little bit of an outing that I had here in Abbotsford today, and also just discuss quickly the Fiber Frolic, and I have some footage from that, and I have some acquisitions. Surprisingly, self-restraint at the Fiber Frolic, but I did have a few things that I wanted to show and brought with me today. All right, first of all, what I'm wearing here today, this is the Cardamom coffee hat, a hat from Caitlin Hunter, Boyland Knitworks, from 2016. I made this with some fingering weight yarn from my friend Leslie YYC Knits when she had her yarn dyeing business. She gifted me some of her minis of her. I love it so much. This gray and then the bit of yellow in there. It's like extremely lightweight hat. It's, I believe, 40 grams. So I wore this around Abby today. That's the nickname. This is episode's all about nicknames. The town of Abby. And yeah, I could have used something a little bit warmer. It was quite chilly today, but the sun did come out and I was okay. And I just like this little accessory. I'm finding that I really enjoy lightweight hats, and this one fits just right, and it's cozy and a quick knit. Of course, I love color work, so yeah, that's what I'm wearing today. Just a simple accessory. And for my first finished object, my second Pearl Soho bandana cowl. This was, oh look, it's sprinkled from being in my suitcase. This is Fresh Fig colorway. It's a Pearl Soho yarn that they gifted me, and it's called Fresh Fig. It's a really rich, lovely color. It's a free pattern. It was part of their Pearl Soho bandana cowl, and that ends on November 30th. So if you're in the United States, it's not too late to make up one of these quick bandana cowls, all knit seamlessly from this bottom point and some short rows and some genius shaping. And you can get it out of one skein if you skip through a couple of the plain knit rounds after you do the shaping, and you can get it out of one skein of their Plenty base or any other bulky weight yarn. And I ended up making two, and you could win prizes like gift cards. That's only if you're in the United States. Regardless, it is a super fun, very quick, sorry, that's a very loud sound to the fridge that just kicked in. Hopefully that's not too loud. It's a very fun, fast, and quick gift knit, and I like the way it feels to have nothing moving around on my neck, like just to have that cowl to hang there and for it to just feel comfy and cozy. I definitely recommend that pattern. It's a classic. It's been around for 10 years and it's genius. And there's a striped version. I did mine all in one color, and I made another one in the natural colorway. I think that was what it was called. So it's a great gift knit if you're looking for that at this point. I have right here with me this is the Cambridge watch cap by Hannah Breitz. I'm in love with this color and currently having a major love affair with Malabrigo, worsted in particular, although I do also have some Malabrigo Mecha, which is a chunky weight, which I'll be showing you in my next finished object. I had this one skein that I had ordered online, and it's such a happy story because my son is 19 and he asked me for something knitted, and he hasn't asked me for anything knitted for a very long time. So I was like super excited, and he's like, Mom, like, just be cool. So I was like, okay, I'll be cool. And he went into the yarn cupboard and chose, this is what he chose. I was like, that's my boy. It's Forest, and I showed him a few different patterns. My go-to hat pattern is generally on the Sea Train hat by Espace Tricot, and I've made, I think, 10 of those toques hats. So I went out on a limb and I'm making something different, the Cambridge watch cap. So it is a free pattern, and it is actually written to have twisted ribs, so there should have been knitting through the back loop. And my son is very, we'll just say, keeps it simple, right? He didn't want anything too fancy, and I thought, well, if he did, I could always flip it out, right side out, or and then a wrong side, and then you could just flip it if you wanted to have more texture. I instead just knit, it's a free pattern, knit 2 and purl 1, and it didn't even use the whole skein of the Malabrigo. It only used 147 yards in the color Forest, with a US 6 4mm, and I was going to block it, which I don't normally block hats, but when I put it on I was like, oh, that feels a little snug. And I knit to pattern as far as length goes so that it could be flipped up with the brim, and it came off the needles, it went on his head, and he's like, it's perfect, don't do anything. Now he doesn't really want his picture taken with it, so this is why I have it, and I get it. He's a shy guy, and he knows I'm gonna plaster that all over social media if he lets me take his photo. So I wanted to mention one thing about that as well. I don't know if it was me, but around row four of the decreases, actually it might have been a little bit farther into the decreases, something went a little bit wonky, and I'm not sure if it was me or if it was the pattern. It is a free pattern, so I mean, I manage my expectations around stuff like that, but I think maybe it might have been my numbers that were a little off, so I had to fudge it a bit to get the decreases just right. But otherwise, yeah, it's a perfect simple toque, and my husband's also requested the exact same one, and he also wants Malabrigo. So that's one of my imminent cast-ons coming up. My third and final finished object are these, I'm going to put them on. It's Thick and Quick Alaphos Lopi mittens. I did not make them in Alaphos Lopi mittens, but it's a free pattern that came out just at the perfect time by Simone, I hope I say your last name right, friend, Van Indersten. She is also known as Sand and Sky Creations on Instagram. And they're a bulky weight mitten. These are mine. I am keeping these. I knit these for myself. I am really pleased with how they turned out. Super quick. I did some hand dyeing earlier in the year, so this was probably from spring. What ended up happening is I get a little excited when it comes to hand dyeing, and I just start throwing like every color. I was like, yeah, I need some yellow. Yes, I want some green. Oh, perhaps I should have some of that dark brown in there. And I just kind of, it turned out to be a bit of a dog's breakfast. And I was like, it's Malabrigo Mecha. And it's so soft and luxurious. And I was sad that I went to town with the colors and I left it. And then I decided, you know what? I wonder what would happen if I over dyed it. So I put it into the dye pot and I put in navy blue, and the colors underneath didn't take the navy blue. And like, I was like, oh my goodness, those are like all my favorite colors. The pops of gold and green, and then some browns, and then some of the brighter greens and blues. I was like, I'll take it. It's a total fluke, but just very pleased with it. And then when Simone put out this free pattern, I was like, well, there we go, because when you start working with something that the colors are hitting all the buttons or like resonating, I'm like, I want that, something I can look at. And what do we look at more than our hands? Now, it is a single ply yarn, and that's the thing with the Malabrigo, is that is a single, so there will be pilling. It's not a twist, there's no twist at all, so it will, you know, might not have longevity, but in the meantime, these colors are. That's it for my finished objects. Let me know what you're working on right now. I always love to read the comments to see what people are up to, what's been ringing your bell, if you are gift knitting or if you're knitting for yourself. Turns out I'm kind of doing both right now. And mostly quick knits, although my work in progress, which I cannot wait to show, it's taking me a bit of time because I'm making it with fingering weight. This is my Zweig pullover, another Caitlin Hunter, and color's coming through pretty good if I'm holding it up correctly. Maybe I'll go this way. So this is a top down, quite a popular pattern with some fingering weight. This is my reclaimed yarn from the Stephen West MCAL, the shawl that I chose not to finish. And then I was gifted some of this arcane fiber sock in this incredible color called, oh, there it is, Blazing Birch. Thank you so much, Tyler from Arcane Fibers. I am digging this so much. I literally could not stop working on this lace portion. I've never knit a lace portion that quickly before, and thanks to Andrea Mowry and a tutorial she had on cabling without a cable needle, I'm also doing the very subtle details in the body. And I was thinking, I don't know, there's kind of a lot going on here. Is it really necessary to put the textured pattern that on the body and the arms? And then when I was at the Fiber Frolic, lo and behold, I'm sitting next to a lovely person, and she was wearing the spike. And I was like, that's the spike. She had done it in a red color, and she had done the texture, and I was like, wow, that looks amazing. After seeing hers, I decided to do it according to the pattern. And I'm a little ways, split for the sleeves, and I've got them on the stitch holders here, and it's fitting really well. So it is my one and only whip right now. So if that's an indication of how much I'm loving it. And yeah, I will try it on as I go. I haven't quite got my exact measurements of a sweater that I love, which is something that Andrea Mowry also recommends, is like measuring your favorite sweatshirt. And as I'm talking about it, I literally just realized right now that I actually am wearing my favorite sweatshirt, which is, it's your standard jersey. And it's a bit cropped as well. So I should measure this up and maybe because I really like the length of it and how my sweater fits. So those are things I'm going to work on. I've realized from starting this podcast that I've been knitting, for a long time, like since 2006, basically hardcore, and worked on my techniques and the things that I like. And I've made a lot of accessories, a lot of toys. I've gone down rabbit holes that I never thought I'd go down. And now I feel like I want to have more of a hand knit wardrobe pieces, more staples. But I don't have as many as I wish I did. So I think maybe it's going to be the next season of my knitting career. My knitting life will be more hand knit wardrobe items, less accessories. But I'll always have an accessory on the needle. I'm a hat maker, and I also like those quick knits. So yeah, so that was just a little aside there. So I'm gonna take you out on the road here now and talk to you a little bit about my day here in Abbotsford. So for those of you who've been with me for the long haul, you will recall that I think my second episode, it was my second or third episode, was actually filmed here in Abbotsford, but I hadn't evolved to the place where I was going to visit local yarn shops and taking you with me outside. And so this time I thought I'd revisit. And so I looked up the local yarn store here in Abbotsford, and it's called the Birkeland Bros Wool Company. So I trekked out from the hotel to go find it. Abbotsford is a city in the country. It has fresh farms and a population of just over 143,000 people. It is approximately 45 minutes to an hour drive southeast of Vancouver. It's located on the south bank of the Fraser River. The city is named after Harry Braithwaite Abbott, who was the general superintendent of the BC CP Railway. 72% of Abbotsford landmass is still agricultural zoning. Abbotsford is the berry capital of Canada. Abbotsford also hosts Western Canada's largest air show. I did walk around and look at some of the beautiful, from the outside that is, the famous Gur Sikh temple, which was built in 1911. I also wanted to mention something, and I hope I'm not giving the impression, and I probably am, that Canadian cities are these wonderful utopias and just like happy everything, but like most countries, I'm assuming, and places, Canadian cities are not without crime and vulnerable populations and drug problems and those types of things. I think it's just the reality of the human condition. Abbotsford is no different. When I was doing some research, I came across a video where the person was talking about the nickname for Abbotsford used to be Stabbotsford. I was like, oh, that's not good. But at one point it actually had the highest crime rate per capita in Canada, and that was a while ago. It's not that anymore, but yeah, there are some, darker sides to the Canadian cities and places like that. So I just wanted to keep it real because that's kind of how I roll. So the plan was to head to Birkeland Bros Wool. However, it wasn't going to open until noon. So I was like, well, how about I walk down and grab a coffee at a local coffee shop. So I ended up stumbling across a wonderful little shop, a family-run business called Oldhand, and you could just tell that everyone that came there was probably a regular. I ended up sitting next to this couple, and I started chatting with them. They had ordered a scone and some apple cider, and they were just sitting there chatting quietly. The couple that has been married like 60 plus years, that kind. We start talking, and turns out her name was Jean and his name was Don. And I said, what? That's my godparents' names. And she thought that was really neat. And then the really young guy sitting next to me with a fabulous mullet, he's like, oh, am I not, I'm not special to be in your video? And he was totally teasing me, but I was like, well, I'd love to have you in my video. And his name was Ian. Now get this, we start chatting. Of course, I don't just start filming people. And I asked if it was okay. And we're chatting away about travels and what everybody was doing. I asked if they came to the shop all the time. Ian is a mechanic, and Jean says, you're a mechanic? Well, Don, her husband, is a retired heavy-duty mechanic, and they were in the process of heading to the bank because they're downsizing and moving into assisted living, I believe. And she's trying to help Don sell some of his tools. And Ian is a mechanic, young guy, and she's like, I just can't even believe this. We all start chatting and talking about, the various things that are going on, and they had that connection. They exchanged phone numbers, and Ian's going to phone Jean and Don about getting their tools. So that was really cool. We also chatted about the thing where they did a road trip across Canada, and they took their fifth wheel out here from the West Coast, and they went all the way out to the East Coast, and then they also went onwards to Newfoundland. And she said she's so glad that they did that. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, road trips are important. As much as I love flying across Canada, I really do have a longing to do some more exploring on ground level versus everything at 40,000 feet. So, and it was amazing. So, I took my coffee, and it was noon, so I decided, okay, I'm gonna head out now and wander down to Birkeland Bros. And I was very surprised to find that it was empty. They are now, at this point, they've moved online only. So yeah, place was cleared right out. I'm not sure when that happened. Google has obviously not been updated, but they are still, they have online products, and VancouverWoolShop.com, I guess. So there was no yarn store or wool shop excursion for me today. I think it must have just been all about going to Oldhand and meeting Dawn, Jean, and Ian today. So that was my Abbotsford adventure today. I hope you enjoyed the footage. And I got back to the room, was kind of feeling that weird little slight visual migraine, which hopefully is gone now. I do feel like my words are coming out. My migraines that I don't get very often, but when I do get them, it's freaky because it's like having a mini stroke, because I can try and say words, but they don't come out right. And I have been checked I had an MRI scan. That's just how they present. And my doctor said it seems to be a bit of a hormonal thing. So, and I haven't had one in a long time, but when I got back to the hotel, I had a bite to eat, drank some water, made myself a Bengal spiced tea, and thought I'd pop on to make my podcast, because it's been a little while. I think 3 weeks, maybe more. This may be one of my last podcasts till the new year. My December flying schedule is, as my British mother-in-law would say, it's chock-a-block. So it's very busy, and I probably won't have a lot of downtime to knit, well, I will find time to knit, but as far as podcasting and editing goes, this might be the last one for the year, but we shall see. Okay. I wanted to briefly talk about my less than desirable outcomes. Let's not talk about fails, okay? Let's just talk about the helpful information. So I won't forget hearing on Amy Palco, the Meaningful Stitches podcast, where she used the acronym SABLE, Stash Acquisition Beyond Life Expectancy, SABLE. So I have that, and I'm trying to go at my stash in a meaningful way and be like, okay, let's tackle some things, let's use some stash. So I dug in super deep and I pulled out some Twinkle Chunky. Now that was a pretty big thing, like big in all ways, like super chunky yarn and single ply, very luxurious yarn. And what had inspired me to get going on this and get some of this wool back in those days was Jane Richmond. She is actually a Vancouver Island designer, and she'd made this cowl called the Miriam, or is it Miriam? I'll put it up here, of course. And I found some, and it was very pricey at the time, and I ended up making a lot of these cowls. They're actually very well fitting, and I started making them out of Malabrigo, but I did get some Twinkle Chunky, and I had this Twinkle Chunky in my stash. And I found a pattern online called the Kingston Sweater by Tara Morrison. And it whipped up so fast. It was a US 17 and a US 19, which I do have those circumference needles because I was really into super chunky back in, I think, 2010, 2011, maybe earlier. So I make this sweater, and I was like, yeah, okay, cool, look at me. I used my stash, felt really good about it, didn't have any leftovers. And then I left it for a few days. And when I took the picture here that I inserted, I was like, this thing's too bulky and heavy. I'll never wear this. My cat really liked it. She laid on it. But I was like, you know what? If I'm not gonna wear my knit, there's no point. So I just frogged it before I came to work, and I will be using the yarn, not for garments. I don't think for me, super bulky wool garments, unless it's like a unspun, would be very wearable for me. It's too bulky and heavy and cumbersome, and I don't think it was very flattering on me. So I was in denial for a few days, even though it literally took like a day and a half to whip up a sweater of that gauge. But I was like, I'm going to make something that I use. So I'll probably make some more Marian cowls and keep working on my stash. And my other non-successful outcome. So my husband saw my son's toque and wanted his own. And he's like, well, as many of you will understand, men and gentlemen tend to say this, can you make me a black one? I'm like, of course I can. But the problem was I looked online and couldn't find any black Malabrigo worsted because he wanted the same wool, because he's like, wow, this stuff's really soft. And I tried to get some, could not. So I thought I was feeling pretty successful after my other successful dyeing mission. I thought, you know what, I'll just get natural undyed Malabrigo worsted, which was available, and I'll just dye it black. Yeah, that didn't work out so good. I did my very best, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. I literally could not make this go black no matter what I did. And then I ended up with some like deep purple blotches. I cooked it. I cooked my Malabrigo worsted. Very sad. It's literally cooked and felted. Now I tried to do low immersion, very low heat. I left it. I seriously can't even pull it apart. Like, I toasted it. All right, so noted. Now I dug a little bit deeper and I went on lovecrafts.com and I did find black Malabrigo worsted, and rest in peace to the Malabrigo worsted natural that I attempted to dye. It's really sad. Yeah. Anyway, so that happened. If you actually wanted to run off now, I am only going to show my acquisitions and talk a little bit about the Edmonton Fiber Frolic that I went to. If you have to run and you're not wanting to see what I picked up, thank you so much for being here, and happy holidays to you. If you're going to stick around for the Fiber Frolic breakdown, thanks for hanging out. Okay. So Edmonton Fiber Frolic. Edmonton is located, it's about a 3 hour and, about 3 hours and change drive north of Calgary, my hometown. So my sister and my friend Tracy, we did a road trip, headed up and stayed with my oldest sister, June. And we had a wonderful time at the Fiber Frolic. And it was this beautiful new venue called the Expo Center, and everything was very nicely laid out. There were a lot of booths and such a variety of different vendors that it was just good right from the second we got there. Parking was easy, which is always a thing. And we wandered around. We each did our own thing. We just got the lay of the land. And one of the first things I did was I need to beeline and go meet Brittany of Crux Fibers. So kind of beelined it over to her and had an in-person hug and talked to her about all the things that she was up to and the beautiful wool and everything that she had on display. I also got to stop and chat with some people who had recognized me from this podcast. Really enjoyed that a lot, and it was wonderful. So I also attended two very educational workshops. They were both by Anna Hunter of Longway Homestead, and oh my goodness, the first one was called Breed Specific Knitting, and Anna had brought samples of the different sheep breeds that she is familiar with and has in and around Manitoba, and some of the Canadian wool. It was so good to have that hands-on information and to talk and hear about the importance of Canadian wool and wool in general and wool growing. It just gets you fired up. For me, it gets us fired up about how we were a powerhouse as a nation for wool, and things have changed over the years, but we're trying to get a resurgence back here, and the potential is there. And yeah, Anna does a great job of describing it. I also came across what I feel is my favorite wool, and it's Rambouillet, and I got a sample of that. She had samples for us. We first of all, this is fingering weight Rambouillet that she generously gave us in the course, and this is surprising. Would you look at this? Icelandic sheep. Yeah, that's right. We have some Icelandic sheep here in Canada, and this was grown in, it's either Manitoba or Saskatchewan. But look at that. Look at that beautiful color. From my visit at Brittany's from Crux Fibers booth, I bought the Ovis sock set that she had. The sun is starting to go down here, so it might be a little bit, actually the light's looking, this is a little bit darker in real life. Maybe I'll bring it to this side of the camera. Anyway, this is untreated blue-faced Leicester fingering weight. And this color is Alabaster. This is Black Beans, and this is Beaver Lodge, to go with the Ovis pattern by the Petite Knitter. So I needed that. I had to have that. And then Brittany, being the generous soul she is, grabs this plate off her shelf of unspun Canadian wool from McCausland Mills. Look at the size of this thing. Oh my goodness, it is getting a little washed out in the light here. But look at that. This is pre-yarn. It is virgin wool, approximately 400 yards. It's from the Maritimes. You can hold one or more strands together. It's from the spring wool clip of 2022. I have plans for this. Thank you so much, Brittany, for that. And thank you for all the Canadian advocates for the wool industry that hopefully we can revitalize and get some awareness of. There's a website you can visit if you're interested. It's called canadianwool.org. And Anna Hunter, and if that's the wrong website, I will put the right one here. She is spearheading and lobbying the government to keep Canada as like a wool producer so that it's not wasted. Yeah, there's potential, and right now it's not really very profitable for wool producers to sell their yarn to the Canadian wool growers, and we're trying to lobby in each province and also on a federal level. So she's made these postcards that we can send to our leaders and get Canada's wool industry back up and running, or a bit more robust and profitable. And yeah, so that was good. It was very educational as well as soul-filling, just to connect with everybody and see all the woolly goodness. I got a couple other little things that I'll show you real quick. I've wanted some knitting barber cords, so I grabbed some knitting barber cords. I don't know if you guys use these, but I like to try on my knits, and I always feel like I should get some of those, so I grabbed them. And then I got this really cute set of stitch markers by Maple and Rose. I just love the colors, and they're matte and very lightweight. So I got those for me, for myself. And then this is a little bit random, but while I was messing around with the samples that Anna had for us and feeling them, I was like, this is how my hair feels. Now, you might have noticed in a lot of videos, I do touch my hair a lot, and I'm always like trying to lift it off my crown a little bit. And it's because I have, I believe, some sort of a dense protein or something going on in my hair. My dad also had that. I do remember that, and it turns out that some of my other family members do as well. And as I'm feeling this targi, I was like, how do you clean this? So I asked Anna how she cleans the targi, and she's like, oh, well, we use this thing called Power Scour. It's unicorn fiber Power Scour. And I was like, I found some Power Scour. They had it there. Anna actually came over and she's like, oh, it turns out they have it. And I went that evening and used a tiny little bit on the back of my head, let it soak for a bit, and scoured it a little, and very little, and it seems to have worked. My hair does not feel as dense and thick and oily. So I kind of bought shampoo. Apparently I'm part cheap, and anyway, I was like, okay, so I brought this on the road with me. I do realize that if I used, I mean, it's very powerful stuff. It's just, it's for cleaning fleece. So I don't use much, but bought myself some sheep shampoo. And that is everything. I have nothing more to share today, and I do hope that you are enjoying these podcasts, and I'm thankful that you're all here, and the time that you spend with me is, our time is our most precious resource, so I thank you for that. If I don't see you before 2023, I will see you in the new year, and happy knitting and stay safe. Bye-bye.